I've uncovered the best 10 shots from the German Masters, and today I'm going to try to recreate all of them, including this, and even this.
Springs to life. Oh, what a pot he's played there.
I'm even going to attempt to recreate some shots that weren't played by Judd Trump, as well as giving you the chance to vote for one of these as your shot of the championship. Once you've picked the shot you want to vote for, just have a look at the link in the description. But if you're not sure which shot is the best, then don't worry, because I'm going to attempt to help you out a little bit. And I'm going to try to play these shots as accurately as I can in the least possible attempts. So that should give you some sort of a guide. And unsurprisingly, we're going to start with Judd Trump. While this might not be the first shot that comes to mind when you're thinking about Judd Trump and this tournament, this is certainly the one that put the final out of reach for Jack Lisowski. If he missed it, then Jack theoretically still had a chance, but this put the final completely out of his reach. This is a difficult long pot played with a fair amount of right-hand side. Judd would have hoped this right-hand side would have got the cue ball safe had he had missed the pink. To start off with, I was struggling to get anywhere near this, and I quickly realised it was because I was striking down on the cue ball a little bit. This made the cue ball swerve more than necessary, and as soon as I started hitting it flat, I started getting a lot closer to the pot, and eventually managed to cannon the black, although it was a little bit too hard, although it did make the shot a little bit easier than Judd's. So that's a good start and a tough shot out of the way. I played it a little bit too hard, but it would have been tough to play it perfectly with the right amount of side spin at a slower speed. Next shot is Junhui with what appears to be the best snooker escape of the tournament, playing the cue ball off 5 cushions here to land on the reds on the top cushion. I realised straight away this needed to be played with a small amount of right hand side, but on my first attempt I slightly overdid it, making the cue ball break just a little bit too wide for the reds. On my second attempt I managed to make the adjustment, however, and got the cue ball probably where Ding was aiming, so I'm happy enough with that. But I don't think it was quite as difficult a shot as it looked. Our next shot definitely is as difficult as it looks, if not harder. Will I be able to play this shot and stop the cue ball by the brown? Thanks to some advice from you guys, I knew exactly where I needed to hit the white, so I just played it like this as hard as I could to see what would happen, and it turned out it wasn't enough. I needed a new plan. The main reason that didn't work is I simply couldn't hit it any harder, so what I'm going to try to do now is throw my whole right side of my body at the shot and just hope I pop the ball. Let's see what happens. As soon as I did this, I managed to pop the green, but didn't quite get enough topspin on it and didn't finish anywhere near the brown and actually ended up closer to the blue. On my next few attempts I realised how difficult this shot was going to be. Not only was I likely to miss the green, but I was even bouncing it quite a lot, so it was highly likely that either the green or the white would jump off the table. And the next time I potted it, I still didn't have enough topspin on the cue ball and it actually ended up in the middle pocket. I was beginning to think this really wasn't going to be possible. Oh, I've taken that. I mean, it's just that way a bit, but yeah. If you watch the cue ball in slow motion, it actually ran up the cushion a little bit there, and that's why it came a bit wider and bounced to a hole rather than skidding. I don't think I can do any better than that on this table, so I'm going to stick with it. But it wasn't quite the same, but I don't think that matters really. Before the next shot, we're just going to find Chris from Perth in Scotland, which is there. And the next shot is Dominic Dale, who's just finished the wrong side of the blue, but that's not going to stop him getting on the red that's on the top cushion from the yellow. This is a long way to screw the cue ball back, so to get on the red, I'm really going to have to play it with almost as much backspin as I can possibly get on the cue ball. Unsurprisingly, this made the pot a little bit tricky, but I knew as soon as I got it, I was going to have enough backspin on the white to get on the red. It even ended up going further than it needed to.
Pretty happy with that. It was quite a difficult pot considering I couldn't quite screw back far enough without launching my whole body at the cue ball. So getting it that quickly is pretty good.
Judd Trump's next shot is one I desperately want to get quickly as well, because I don't want to be putting all of these reds back too many times. Luckily, all I've got to do is play an accurate pot, and unsurprisingly this doesn't actually require any spin, it's just a basic top spin shot. However, the pot isn't exactly easy. Fortunately, however, I managed not only to get it on my very next attempt, but to also pot a red in the middle pocket as well, and finish on the blue. This was actually better than Judd ended up on this shot, and left me in perfect position. Jack Lisowski didn't get to the final of this tournament for no reason. He was potting a lot of good balls in this tournament, including this one. This is similar to the Kyron Wilson shot I played after the Masters, and it needs to be played with right hand side and backspin to screw the cue ball back off the side cushion down the table. However, just because I played it once already, that wasn't going to make it any easier. So I was really pleased to get this tough pot after just 4 attempts.
Feels like we're on a bit of a roll here. This tournament's produced some of the most difficult shots I've ever had to try, and we're moving through them pretty quickly.
So it's Jack again, screwing back even further on the other side of the table from another tough long pot. I wasn't 100% sure if Jack played this one with any side spin whatsoever, but played it with a small trace of left hand side just to make it a little bit easier. This one both felt really good and couldn't really have gone any better.
Of course, you're far more likely to pot the ball if you stay down on the shot and as still as possible. But you're not going to quite get the same amount of reaction, so I had to jump forward on that last one.
This is probably the next Judd Trump shot you've been waiting for, an unbelievably accurate positional shot, playing the cue ball round 2 cushions to cannon the red out with right hand side. As I'll explain in a minute, playing this shot with this amount of stun and side makes it extremely missable, and that's at just a firm pace. Here I'm having to play it quite hard. But to play this shot, I not only need to pot it, I also need to play the cue ball with exactly the right amount of stun to hit the right place on the cushion, while it has exactly the right amount of side spin on the cue ball. But why does it make it so difficult to play a shot exactly like this?
So here's why the shot's so difficult. To start off with, it's a tricky angle cut, but then you've got to play it with right hand side. Now, when you play any shot like this, it's always easiest to play it with the opposite side to which you're cutting it. So it'd be easiest to play this with left hand side. But as I said, we've got to play it with right.
The spin deflects the cue ball away from the black, meaning if you play it just a little bit too hard, you're going to miss this.
The next problem is the more you stun the cue ball, the closer it's going to get to this corner pocket, but that also means the less side you're going to need. Judd's shot got very close to the corner pocket, whereas mine was a long way from it and needed more side spin. You've also got to play the cue ball with a moderate but very precise amount of stun and side, and that I found very tricky as well. So nowhere near it. It's just going to take a minute to find Savage RZ in Aguas Calientes in Mexico, which is about there.
Joe Perry here plays a very accurate shot down the rail while screwing the cue ball back into bulk. This is definitely the type of shot that I was hoping I'd be able to pot first time, as it just needed an accurate pot and to be able to screw the cue ball back into bulk. However, I just rattled it on the first couple of occasions.
So that was actually a pretty tricky shot. Maybe not as hard as the last few I've tried, but I wanted to include something that wasn't played by Jack and Judd in this video.
Ian Burns now with what was probably the best safety shot of the entire tournament. There are a few of these where players managed to get the cue ball back behind bulk colours, but I don't think any were off such a tough shot, getting the cue ball behind a colour that was so close to the bulk cushion. You don't need any side spin on this shot, but it's very, very difficult to catch the red exactly thin enough, and I kept missing it altogether on a couple of occasions. I was expecting this one to take about 20 odd attempts just because it's so difficult to get exactly the right angle off the red. However, fortunately, I managed to get this after just 4.
Don't be fooled by the number of attempts I got this in. Hitting this thin enough to get back here was incredibly tough. So pick your favourite and you can vote for it in the link that's in the description, and I'll announce the winner, which is likely to be a Judd Trump shot, next week at some point.
But while you're waiting to find out, why not have a look at one of my previous attempts to recreate the best shots from other tournaments? And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.